Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
So friends, welcome to PTV Melbourne. Today we are going to talk about ISKCON, a very fast growing way of life, way of religion of the Hindu culture. ISKCON started in 1966 and it has spread worldwide nowadays. It has got more than 850 centers, and with us is Swami Hridayananda Das Goswami ji, who is one of the pioneer and very top influential leader in ISKCON society. Welcome to PTV Melbourne, Archarya Deva.
Thank you very much.
You have come to Australia after a gap of around 32 years.
After 32 years, right?
32 years.
Slight delay, yes.
Yeah. So how do you find the how you find the change socially and religiously in Australia?
I like Australia very much. Australia is a very beautiful country, many nice people. Almost all the people I meet actually are very nice, even just walking. I've been up to Queensland. I stayed actually in Currumbin Beach, and we did programs in Surfers Paradise, Brisbane, and then also in the large community we have outside Murwillumbah. Also in Byron Bay, actually. And although I'm not a surfer. And then I came down to Sydney. We had many programs around the Sydney area. And now Melbourne. So yeah, I think Australia is a great country. So many facilities, so many nice devotees, so many nice people in general. So it's been a great trip.
Wow. To our viewers, would like to tell that Swami Hridayananda Das Goswami ji is one of the 11 guru chosen by Srila Prabhupada ji, and you have translated Srimad Bhagavatam from Sanskrit to English. So you know so much things about ISKCON.
So much.
Give us a bit idea to a common person like me who is not a follower of ISKCON, but always get impressed with the goodness and the well-being of this society. So give us a bit about ISKCON.
Right, sure.
Yeah.
ISKCON is a society which offers a particular and I think most important service to society, which is self-realization and then ultimately God realization. In the modern world, society is very complex, and we take advantage of the services of many people. Doctors, well, lawyers sometimes, doctors, lawyers, dentists, fitness trainers, and we go to school, we have teachers. So they're just, electricians,
yeah,
plumbers. I mean, they're just innumerable different vocations, innumerable different professional people that help us in different ways. And someone has to really help with self-realization, because I hate to be the one to give this bad news, but we're all mortal. And if we love life, if we love other souls, and we love our own life, then we should try to arrange to extend it indefinitely. And that requires a spiritual technique.
Wow. Tell us one thing, you have more than 850 centers across worldwide. So how difficult and challenging is it for people like you and others, leaders, to keep the same practice and beliefs among this widespread world nowadays? The world is so different, so many new things are coming, technology has changed the way of life, So how do you guide people, bhakts to stay focused and follow good learning of ISKCON?
Well, fortunately, Prabhupada, our founder Acharya, emphasized individual responsibility and initiative. Prabhupada resisted very strongly a highly centralized bureaucracy. And so as a result of the way he set up the Hare Krishna movement, we have good, strong leaders all around the world. And also, Prabhupada, he so strongly impressed all of us with his own purity, his own authenticity, and he presented the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavat Puran and this great Vaishnava tradition. He presented it so powerfully that we haven't gone off the rails. So I think it's really Prabhupada's credit because of the way he trained us, both in terms of management culture and especially the power of his teachings. And because it's true, Krishna really is what he says he is in Bhagavad Gita.
Wow. One thing which a common person I have noticed that in the busy streets of London or Melbourne or any other in US, we've seen ISKCON Bhakts going to the streets, dancing, chanting Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, and people are so exciting. People join them, they dance with them. How does this concept helps to spread ISKCON? Is it a good way to market ISKCON, or is it something like what's the way behind, what's the intention about it?
Yes, our movement is called the Sankirtan movement. Sankirtan means together chanting, glorifying the Lord. As far as our specific presentation, another great thing about ISKCON is that Prabhupada created an open, free society. It's not cultish in the sense that those who are faithfully following our basic principles are free to express as ladies and gentlemen, with proper decorum, are free to express different views. So personally, I've started something called Krishna West. And because I strongly believe, based on my own studies of the history of religions and the sociology of religion and so on, and also having keenly observed the history of ISKCON, personally I've observed it for almost half a century, that I'm convinced that we should teach people to chant, for example, the Maha Mantra, to glorify God, but our presentation doesn't need to be highly ethnic, that we can present ourselves in a way which is more comfortable, more familiar to people in the West, while still doing it in, I guess in the Gita's term, in a sattvic manner. So it's decent, it's proper, and so on, but at the same time it's not strange or foreign or exotic, because ultimately I believe that to really establish ourselves more powerfully and really become very much a mainstream, important spiritual tradition in the West, we have to keep all of our basic principles, our teachings, or our personal practice, but we have to be part of society and not stand far outside of it culturally.
Okay, cool. Now, going back to your journey on this, this movement, you have translated the Srimad Bhagavat from Sanskrit to English. How did you, get inspiration, and how difficult was it for you to learn Sanskrit and translate it to English? So, give us a bit idea about that journey.
Well, 1978 actually, I was in Brazil, and I was in charge of Latin America, and I realized there was a need for someone to step forward and help to finish Prabhupada's Bhagavatam. And everyone can do something, and so Krishna kind of gave me a certain ability with languages, and I always loved the Bhagavatam, and so somehow I was able to learn Sanskrit. I taught myself Sanskrit. Then I also got a doctorate in Sanskrit at Harvard, and but largely self-taught. And I have a colleague who's also a disciple of Prabhupada who has passed away several years ago, Gopi Pranadhana, an American Vaishnava who studied at Columbia, and he was very good at Sanskrit, so he rendered very valuable service to that project. I sort of organized a team, and we were able to do it.
Wow. Tell us about something about your Food for Life program. I heard that you guys, do such good thing to society. You also run hospitals. So apart from the religious activity, give us a bit idea about this.
Well, Food for Life is distributing food to needy people actually began in West Bengal.
Oh, okay.
In Mayapur, because Prabhupada saw some of the local people, they had a terrible communist government for many years there, enabling West Bengal to become one of the poorest states in India. Anyway, so Prabhupada saw people, village people, scavenging for food. He saw they were actually hungry, going through the rubbish, trying to get food. And so it actually brought tears to his eyes. And he said that no one within so many miles of an ISKCON temple should ever be hungry. And so that launched Food for Life. But it's not only material benefit, because Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita that if you simply take this food, patram puspam phalam toyam, and you offer it to Krishna, to God, with gratitude, because it comes from God, then the recipients get not only material benefit, but also spiritual benefit. So it's...
Yeah. So talking about Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Shri Krishna was, he was a mentor to Arjun, and there was a war as well happened between Kauravas and Pandavas. So what does ISKCON say about those kind of, learning from the Srimad Bhagavad, when he says, Karam kiye ja, phal ki ichha mat kar, means you keep doing your work, don't expect the result. Result will automatically come.
Yes.
So some of the, the Sri Krishna, preaching to Arjun, how does it relate from ISKCON in a practical way? Like, we all are nowadays a working professional, we are all busy, we are a bit confused, which religion we follow, how do we, program our day-to-day life, and whatever small time we get, we try to go to the God, through different ways. So what do you say to the people like me, what's the right way, how do I keep my focus, and how do I keep my energy towards God, whatever, belief I follow? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Krishna in Bhagavad Gita gives a very practical teaching. It's not sort of pie in the sky. And Arjuna, for example, also had a full-time job. He was a prince.
Yeah.
He was not in the forest somewhere meditating. And so Krishna taught him karma yoga. In this sense, karma means just what you do, your profession, and yoga means that you offer to Krishna. So Krishna says, whatever you do, make that an offering to me. So it doesn't, for example, you work in the film industry, and so whatever we do, why are you doing it? Of course, and most of the time in this world, people work because they have families. And so they go to work thinking that they're doing this for their family, for their children, or their wife or husband, and so on. But that those children, or wife or husband, ultimately, they are children of God. They are children of Krishna. And ultimately, your power to work, the energy to work, the intelligence to work, that's coming from Krishna. And so we should be grateful. We ourselves are part of Krishna. Ultimately, in the entire universe, there's only one family, spiritually. Because Krishna says in the Gita, Pitahamasya Jagato, I'm the father of this universe. Mata, and the mother. Data, Pitamaha, and so on. And Arjuna said to Krishna, Pitasi lokasya characharasya, you are the father of the universe. So we are all families. Just as you work for your family out of love, so ultimately we are all in Krishna's family. And so whatever we're doing, we do it for Krishna, and that, of course, that includes our family, biological family.
Very well said, Acharya ji. Do you think that today's it's a bit difficult for organization like ISKCON to convince people to follow the religious path, because especially the youngster they have so much access nowadays, access of technology, so much access of some of the beliefs which have changed over the time, like talking about marriage. In some places, not many marriages are happening, but people are still living together. People are separating fast. How do you feel that the teaching, the beliefs and teaching of ISKCON or other religions are very important nowadays to bring the world back towards that spiritual state?
Right.
Yeah.
People are taking a lot of liberties nowadays. It's almost, you could say, a libertine society. At the same time, they're not happy. I mean, in America, it's just like sort of like, pharmaceutical nation. I mean, if you look at the number of people, I think Australia, there must be a healthy or unhealthy number of people who are taking pharmaceuticals. It's not that people are happy. There's certain laws. For example, you can eat junk food, but you won't feel good. Your body won't feel good. You'll get all kinds of diseases. And so, you know what they say, if everything else fails, read the instructions. And so Krishna is giving us a roadmap of how to live in this world so we can be happy and healthy, physically, emotionally, and ultimately spiritually. So as far as the young people, our experience is that when we present Krishna consciousness in a rational way, not as a religion, because ultimately it's not a religion, ultimately it is a spiritual science. And so just like, for example, if there's some new science in the medical field, no one cares where a medicine was invented or a procedure. If you are suffering from some medical issue and the doctor fortunately tells you we can fix this, who cares what country the medicine came from? And that's why it's so important that we not present Krishna consciousness as some ethnic thing. It's not. Krishna is giving a universal spiritual science for everyone. And if we understand it that way and present it that way, then people will accept it because it works.
Yeah. So I'm sure you have so many bhakts following, and bhakts are living in all Western world and Eastern world. And now every day, world is globalization. It's already globalized. You get some of the issues like betting, the drinking, or gambling, horse racing. All these things are exciting to the young generation, as I said earlier, and somehow it's becoming a way of life for so many people.
But actually, for example, I just saw the latest statistic, and among teenagers, states, the level of, let's say, sex, outside of marriage is actually decreasing. I don't know whether that's because their brains are melted from social media, or whether they're actually, having some kind of moral renewal. But the fact is that it's just decreasing. People, it's like, the forbidden fruit is always attractive. So after so many centuries where sex and drugs was the forbidden fruit, and then finally, society became materialistic and anyone could do anything. And so there's that, that certain attraction. But once people actually experience these things, it's not satisfying. It's not satisfying. And so, those who are intelligent are beginning to understand this.
Yeah. I would like to, make a point here. I think this is a bit of like a reverse migration happening. So what we are noticing is that in the West, people have seen all those things over the years, and now they have conclude, okay, this is not the right way, and they are transforming themselves. So for example, if you see, the more yogas are happening outside India, where it was originated, and whereas countries like Eastern countries, India and China, where they were a very good religious point of view at a certain time, now they are getting bit opening up, and they are
materialistic.
So they are getting materialistic. Yeah. So it's a bit of like one way the world is improving,
yes,
but on the other side, the world which was good is deteriorating.
No, actually, it's all perfectly logical. It's like, for example, let's say there's a train with so many cars, and the train goes around a curve, and so the front cars go around the curve, so when they pass, the front cars are going one direction, the back cars are going the opposite direction, but it's the same train. And so actually, it's a historical process where people, the Greeks talked about this, where, let's say you have a society where it has certain moral principles, and the reason those principles are there is because of long experience. People realize that we cannot be happy and healthy and even survive as a society unless we follow these principles. But over time, people forget why those rules are in place, and it just seems like needless interference with people's lives and happiness, like it's none of your business and blah, blah, blah. And so then they throw away these rules and indulge themselves, and then they suffer and remember why they had the rules in the first place. And so, for example, the battle cry of the American Revolution was no taxation without representation. And so if you think about it, reproduction is not exclusively an individual act, because when people reproduce, they bring a child into the world, and what social science shows is that if children are not brought up in a good family with a mother and father, they're much more likely to commit suicide, they're much more likely to be poor, to have other mental problems, to engage in antisocial or self-destructive behavior. And so in other words, when children are not parented properly, and that means within a stable marriage, society pays a tax. Society pays for it. So it's a general ethical principle that whenever a group of people are significantly affected by behavior, they have a rational, justifiable interest to regulate that behavior. It's just like, for example, you may own some land, and you may, let's say, have a little cottage industry on your land, and you can say, this is my land, I can do what I want. But if your cottage industry is polluting the river that goes through other people's land, if you're polluting the air that other people have to breathe, you have to be regulated.
Yeah.
And so this sort of exaggerated, irrational sense of individualism, there has to be a balance between individual freedom and social responsibility. So in countries like India and China, they're just going through the same process the West did, just a little bit later. But they will also realize that it's frustrating and makes life miserable and increases all kinds of bad things, like mental illness, crime, and so on.
Very well said.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada.